Hello, everyone. It is Monday, October 5th, and we are moving into week 6 of the course, and that means we're going to be 3/4 of the way done at the end of this week. And it's been a lot of work. It is an intensive course, a lot of writing, a lot of discussion, a lot of reading. And the idea is that one thing builds on another. And so last week in Unit 5, you saw that we talked about change more than anything else. And the discussion was about change. The whole idea of what you're writing about and reading about is about change. The discussion centered around that old retail giant, Sears, that actually failed to change. And that's where you saw a lot of downfall. And frankly, in reading the discussions, I started to feel very old because to me Sears was kind of a household name, and several of you had some probably sounded like vague memories of the Sears catalog, and I made some comments to people in the discussion where Sears was Amazon before Amazon was Amazon, only they did it on paper and through the mail, and a lot of more primitive technological aspects, but they are an example of a company that just was so big and so used to doing things that a lot of things, well, change snuck up on them, I think, is a way to look at it. And it will sneak up on all of us if we're not careful. The thing is, we are in a time where change is still happening so rapidly. The pace has not stopped. The pace has not slowed down even. The pace is faster and faster. Technology drives it, but also our need to respond to very, very interesting conditions drive it. 2020, this year, has been probably the most interesting year, certainly that I can remember, and we have seen circumstances go wildly from one end to the other, from a expanding economy to an amazing contraction, to a public health situation where we didn't worry about anything, where now we worry about everything. It is, our education system has been upended. We've come to appreciate really factors that we weren't even considering as a society. Like, we always thought school was education. Then we found out it was also daycare, right? We always thought that work was a place you went to, and now work has come home to us. So things are different. It's no question about that. But as you can see, it's how we react as individuals and organizations that can make quite a bit of difference. One of the things I must say, honestly, is as you look at a question like our discussion question from last week, which I found very interesting when people responded to some of my questions late in the discussion, a little bit of reality came in, and some of the answers I got back were, no, Sears really is beyond hope, and that's probably true. At least in my opinion, that's probably true. And I realized the question was not asked in that sense. The question was asked in, what can you do to bring it back to health? What changes can you make? What would you recommend if you were top management? And what I really want people to understand, though, is I appreciate everyone's efforts in answering that question, but really, don't be afraid to inject reality into your answers. The idea here was to give you a theoretical proposition. But really, when we looked at some of the things that people were suggesting, I think even the writers knew that those weren't viable. And what I'm just asking you to do is be realistic and be appreciative of the times you live in, of the situations that are out there, the realities of the business world, because I really hope that everybody is conversant in what's going on now. And by that I mean be aware of the current environment and current events. If you're not, it's going to be difficult for you to maintain credibility and a sense of being up against what's going on. I'm being a little tongue-tied here because it's kind of hard to say. I want people to think that you're paying attention, all right? And if it doesn't look like you're paying attention, if you think like Sears is, a real viable business, then, if you're trying to get a new job or win somebody over in an argument, that could be a symptom of us just not paying attention, getting wrapped up in what's in front of us. And unfortunately, we cannot do that anymore. So that's one thing we really have to keep in mind. Okay, now, this week we go into, maybe building on prior weeks, one of the more important things. It's the idea of decision making and organizational learning. And it's really interesting. Organizational learning really directly grows out of what you did last week. Do organizations and people learn from their mistakes or from their successes? How do they learn? What do they learn? And then how do they apply it? The other thing is decision making. One of the biggest roles we have as managers, as executives, is making decisions. Yet, too few people think about how they make decisions, how decisions can be made better, and what goes into making a decision. And we'll venture into some areas like knowledge management, some areas like cognitive bias, all these kind of things that come in and affect your decisions. You know, the one thing about decisions are when we make them, we usually think they're going to be correct. And then we fight like the devil to make sure that they are correct. And we really don't want to admit, in many cases, that we were wrong. And we don't learn from anything. The idea is decision making is a science. You can get down to it where we do call it decision science. And there are things that we can do and understand the methodologies to help us overcome some of these biases and overcome some of these obstacles to learning, making better decisions, and making more authoritative and data-based decisions that will help you go forward. Okay? So basically, nothing has changed this week. I'm going to try, as usual, to get the discussions done today and tomorrow, papers done by Wednesday. The thing you have to be on the lookout for is that in this course and in our grading format that I'm sure you've all become familiar with over the last several months, the big paper, the catch-all paper, if you will, the most important paper is not due at the end of the class. It's due at the end of next week, week 7. And this is the one where you will be doing more of a formative exercise. Now you're doing a summative exercise then. And by that we mean that's where you're putting everything together. So just keep that in mind, because that is, as I just said, the big paper for the class. And it also has a greater weight in your grade. So that's something to be aware of. It doesn't come up in week 8. It comes up in week 7. Also, I think I've caught up with most people who have maybe had some arrangements about some interferences that caused back work or two. If you have any questions about anything, please get them to me now. Okay? If you have any questions or anything you anticipate, we had a couple of military training exercises come up that required people to be elsewhere for a week. We've been able to handle that seamlessly. All right, things like that. But also take a look at where you stand. If you're missing any assignments, if you're missing anything, please either contact me about what can be done about it or make your best effort to get caught up, because this is week 6. Beyond this, we've only got 2 weeks left. Okay, so as usual, thank you for your participation, your time. As I said earlier, this is an intensive course. It's a lot of work. A lot of time has been put into it by a lot of people, and I really appreciate that. So maintain your pace. Understand that it builds one week on the other, and now we're going into one more step. Thank you very much.